Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Construction Talk with the Lads. As you can see, we just come from a road trip. Just kidding. We decided to do things a little bit differently. But our guest for today is Dr. Lawrence Mbugua, one of the professionals here at Technical University of Kenya, but he's also practicing as a project manager. And we just wanted to know uh, his opinion on certain topics. And just for a start, first of all, thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you, and I'm excited at your innovative ideas of how to do these interviews. This interesting studio to be in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's start by knowing your story, how you started off this construction management journey.
Okay. I don't know how far back to start. Maybe I can start in high school. In high school, I wasn't really clear on what I wanted to do. So I recall speaking to my parents. They were pushing me to be a doctor, or that was the priority they really wanted me to. But I wasn't very keen. So I decided to visit a few of my relatives who are doing different aspects in the profession, and I met one of my uncles who was a valuer, and he really got me interested in the real estate industry.
Okay.
So actually, that's where now my interest in construction and real estate came in. So I finally then picked to go and do building economics, and I was successful. Went to University of Nairobi. That's where I started, did my degree there in building economics. When I finished, I was keen to progress to do my master's, and actually wanted to do it straight away. So actually started my applications when I was in my third year.
Wow.
And by the time I was in my fourth year, I'd already got two offers to two universities, all subject to me passing my exams, which fortunately I did. So actually, we finished university in July, and by September, I was already started the next university, and even our graduation was in December. So I'd already started my master's before even the actual graduation happened. So I was quite happy that I'd progressed that quickly. As soon as I finished my master's, I was actually second in the class, so they offered me a scholarship to progress to do my PhD.
Wow.
So I was happy to progress with that. So straight away I got into my PhD, and I did that straight back to back. So within 3 years, I was very keen to also do it very fast. So within 3 years, I had finished it. So I think by the time I was about 28, I had already finished my master's and my PhD, and
Wow.
I started working.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, so I've been working since then in the UK mainly, working with various major consultancy companies in project management and quantity surveying. And more recently, I've also been working in Kenya, doing some various works. I've also been teaching, so I've taught at various universities, both in the UK and in Kenya. So now here I am with my students, pushing me to do new things. So I'm very excited about this.
And just to ask, so did you for the master's program? That's why
Yeah.
you moved to UK.
Yes. So I did my master's in the UK. So I moved to do that. Also my PhD, I did it in the UK. And since then, I'd been working there for almost 20 years before I decided to come back to Kenya.
Okay. Okay, sir.
That's nice. So, which are some of the major projects you've worked on?
I've worked on various projects in the UK, varying from housing, urban regeneration. That was my core area, and also organizational change, working with companies from contractors to also professional bodies within the construction industry, looking to transform the organization. So not just the hardcore building, but also some of the softer stuff. So I've done that in Kenya also. In UK, I'd say maybe the project that is most visible that people know about is the Arsenal Stadium. So I was involved in that time.
Are you a fan of Arsenal?
I'm not a fan of any football team, not
Wow,
let alone
okay.
Arsenal. I follow football just because of company. If my friends are watching, then I'll watch with it, but I wouldn't stop what I'm doing to do
What
to
about
watch
Formula
football.
One?
Even Formula One, I'm not a big fan. I've been to Silverstone in the UK
Wow.
to watch them. So I think for me, sports is more of a social thing. So if
Okay.
my friends are doing something, I'll do it. Whether it's golf, it's football, it's cricket, anything, rugby. I've been to rugby sevens, but it's more the social
The
aspect,
social aspect.
than the sports side of it. So if you ask me technical things about the sports, I'll not be.
So you know the Arsenal Stadium back to back.
Yes, more from the construction side, also from the business side of it, because I'd say in terms of how, maybe bring it back to construction, how we build our stadiums versus how they build their stadiums there, it's completely different. For us, it's just a simple stadium with a stand, people to come and watch a game. But actually for them, you start from it from a business point of view. You look at it, how many games are going to be played here, and in reality there are very few games in a year that will be played in that stadium. So even if we pick Arsenal, for the fans, count the number of times that actually Arsenal has played within Arsenal Stadium in a year. You'll find there are very few times. So you have 365 days. What is the stadium doing the rest of the 365 days? So actually that's the priority.
So what do they do?
So it's business. You have conferencing, it's a hotel, there is shops, there is merchandising, weddings are happening there because it's a big brand, so people want to have their weddings at. So that's the priority. How do you brand this? And then you think about media. You guys watch this on TV, so you've got to make sure that its setup is almost like a media center. So you'll have different uses that then make up the stadium. And the football game in itself is actually, in terms of usage, is quite a small. But when it happens, they make sure that they blow it up, that the media center, there's a media center section where they can be able to film, capture all these broadcasts and get that game out to all over the world very quickly in high good quality, both picture and sound. So the priority is the business side of it. How do you run this?
And that's one difference that you've shown between construction management in Kenya and UK.
Yes, but that's from design. Even from the design, the construction is the actual building of it. So I'm just saying from the design of it, even before that, is thinking about it from a business perspective. And I think maybe that's why most of our stadiums struggle here, because you're just putting seats on concrete. Then what else? Where will the money come to actually maintain this stadium? How do we pull people, and are people only coming for the game? Is it only on Saturday, or so you'll find even most stadiums, most likely they're more used for political events,
gatherings.
So we need to think through exactly what do you want to use this facility for.
So it's a multi-purpose space.
It is.
I've seen that there are some stadiums which are flexible in that it can be used to play like two sports. Some days it can be turned into even a rugby pitch or a football. Is the Emirates the same?
No, the Emirates is purely for football. That's because it's owned by the club. So the club doesn't do other sports. So they focused on that. Obviously, the other training sections, they've got to have facilities for the players, for them to accompany. But maybe from what you're saying, reminds me of some work I did with the London Olympic Games. So during the London Olympics Games, it's the same. When they were building some of the sports facilities, it was important to think about the legacy. So it was important for them to think, after this game, after this Olympics is finished, what will these facilities be used? So again, it's coming from a business. So I'll give an example of the swimming pool.
Yes.
So to build a swimming pool for the Olympics has to be an Olympic size swimming pool, which is fairly big.
Absolutely.
And then you also know that during the Olympics, the audience, the number of people who will come to watch the swimming is going to be quite huge. But outside of the Olympics, no one is going to come and watch an Olympic people swimming. So it's going to be, the crowd is going to be very much smaller. The number of people, that swimming pool is quite big. It will not be functional beyond outside of the Olympics. So from a design perspective, we have to think through what's the business case for this. How does it go? Is this going to be a community swimming pool with one occasional event that will be an Olympics, but the rest of the time, so now the sitting space was made as temporary sitting space, which would be collapsible and removed, and then now the swimming pool is then repurposed into a community pool. So I think is to say, actually, when even as we come in as construction managers, it's not just building, because you have to think through that that's just one small part of the whole life of the building. So we have to think of the life of the building for the next 50 years. What will it be doing? How will it be useful? How do we make it more useful so that we can support our clients to build functional buildings?
Something that you can adapt even maybe to change.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Victor?
Oh, Dr. Mbugua,
Yes.
about 9 years ago, you did a TED talk. You urged fellow Africans to try to invest back in the African community. As Africans in the current space, we are championing for infrastructure. What is your input on that infrastructure? Yeah.
Thanks. Actually, you take me back at the time that I did that TED talk. That must be quite a while back. Must be more than 10 or 15 years ago. At the time, the issue that I was trying to address was that there wasn't that much interest in investment in Africa, and particularly in Kenya. At that time, we had just come from the Moi government, so people were not very positive about investing back home, including people from the diaspora. So what motivated me, that was to try and motivate my fellow people in the UK, my fellow diasporans and wider Africa, to invest back in Kenya. So that's so what we had done. We had done an event which was the first ever property exhibition in the UK for Kenyan property. So we got developers. We got about 10 or so odd developers. Took them to the UK, did a big expo, and we got people coming in, both Kenyan, both people from other African countries, and even from UK people, residents who are now interested to start investing in Kenya. Right. And I think that must have been around 2017, I think, or 2007, must be 2007, sorry. It's quite a while back, I forget the years. So it was quite interesting to be able to now make people really understand that there is opportunity to invest in real estate in Kenya. Okay. And so on the back of that, then the guys who were organizing the TED Talk also asked me to come and give a talk and to encourage people to invest. So yes, now when it comes to infrastructure, there's a huge gap across Africa. Yeah. I can't remember the figure from the top of my head, but it's more than $1 trillion in terms of gap, how much infrastructure we need. Wow. From roads, from power, from water, electricity. So there's just so much shortage in terms of how much infrastructure we need, and the gap of how much infrastructure that we are putting in. Okay. So there is a huge gap, and the potential to invest in that. For infrastructure, is a bit harder for individuals to invest, but there are major corporate companies that invest in infrastructure. So that's where most PPP projects come in. Right. And that is a big wave that at the moment the government is keen to promote that, to ensure that we can get some inward investment to support the development of the infrastructure. And then we can repay it over a longer period of time.
So that's in terms of the infrastructure aspect. So one may ask, how now about comparing construction management as a practice between Kenya and UK. Yeah. Is there something that Kenya can learn from the UK on how we manage projects? You did mention about thinking from the perspective of a business, which is one example. Are there other examples that you can tell us on how Kenya can learn from UK?
Yes, so I think there are many comparisons. Obviously, the practice of doing construction management, there's a lot of similarities. I'd say the differences are in many areas. One, I'd say in technology. So you'll find in the UK, labor is expensive. The weather also is quite harsh. Okay. So, it will be raining majority of the time, or snowing, or it will be cold. And the window to actually have, a nice weather to actually do work outside is very limited. And then on top of that, most of the young people do not find construction as attractive, because they feel they can get professional jobs, they want to work in the office. Okay. So given that they have that, makes it challenging to work on site for many people, a lot of the construction has moved to off-site. So there's a lot of prefabrication, a lot of off-site manufacturing. starts from components. So you'd have different components that are prepared, from walls to windows, and through to actual whole systems. So nowadays you may be able even to get, say for instance, you're working in an apartment block that's maybe 20 floors, and they are going to put up toilets. So instead of building the toilets on site, the toilets would be built off site, and they just come as a pod already made. So you just drop it in. So you
Into
just
those
have your
shafts.
frame just go into the shaft and drop it in all the way to the bottom, and you have all your toilets stacked up, and the whole bathroom and everything is all done. So there's a lot of that happening through to now they're talking about 3D printing, although that I wouldn't say is common practice. But the assembly and prefabrication of component parts of the buildings is very popular. It's rare to see a building that's being built brick by brick. So that could only be done for the facing, but majority of the wall will come prefabricated. They just hoist it and upload it on the wall. So technology wise, there is a lot. I'd say also culture wise. Culture wise, I'd say in the construction industry, in the UK, and I'm sure in other sectors, everyone takes their work seriously. So if you're a construction manager and you're managing a project, I would say it's much easier in the UK, because when you give people pieces of work, they will do the work, and you'll only be coming to check and making sure that the work is done well. We know in this country, if you employ a fundi, you've got to stand at their back from morning to evening. The minute you step out, then they're doing something completely different. So I think that building the skill sets of the people who are actually working on site makes it much easier for construction management. And so it would be important to continue investing at that level, where there is good training for the operatives and the laborers on site, because then that makes the quality of the work improves. The management, the work of the construction managers is much better, and you're able to to add value on more high level items, rather than really just standing behind someone to make sure that they do their job correctly.
It's interesting you said that, because I had a conversation with one of the project managers here in Kenya, and he said, if you could define construction in Kenya, it's like reminding adults what they need to do.
Absolutely.
And so now let's talk about, because clearly you've done a lot. I mean, you've already, and what I liked about it is that it's like you did some of these things back to back. You finished your degree, you went to your postgraduate, and then master's, a PhD. What are the challenges you faced in your practice as an individual in regards to the industry?
I'd say the challenges vary, and they never end. So it's not like you have one challenge and you resolve it, and then it's all downhill from there. So I think as you progress in your career, you will find different challenges. So if I look back when I was starting out, even just getting a job was a challenge. In the UK, trying to get jobs, there's always challenges, especially if you're a foreigner. So that was an initial challenge. Fortunately, I'd done well, so my grades were able to speak for me. I pushed as hard as I can in terms of applications. I remember even at some point I was making applications to the point of doing more than one application to the same organization. So now I had to start keeping a list. I'm keeping a list of all the companies. I wish I had taken a copy of that, but I think it was running on 2 full scabs. So every time I apply at a company, I've kept it. I'm trying to remember, have they replied, where I've reached on it, and follow through. And then I have my priority list of companies, and until I got the job in the company that I wanted, which I was happy with. And then even as you enter the industry again, how do you assimilate in the organization? How do you prove that you are productive? You are able to to deliver for your clients. And as you progress to being a manager, to being a director, so the challenges keep changing. And even today, I wouldn't say that there still are challenges in progressing my career. So it's a never-ending journey, and I'd say the big takeaway is that you have to be resilient, you have to be purposeful, you have to know this is what I want to do, and be committed to that. So many times I would say there's possibility to get distracted. So for me, I was clear that I want to work in the construction industry, and that's what I want to focus on. And many opportunities will come. Even when we were at university, people said, "Oh, there is money in banking. You need to do CPAs. You'll make money." Then I felt, no, I just want to focus on what I want to do. And as you progress, you'll always find technology came in. Then everyone is into IT, so other people change. They say, "I want to get into IT. I want to be," So you'll always get distractions, and there'll be other jobs that are paying more. There'll be other people who are doing better. So I think as long as you are committed to your journey, then you'll be able to be seeing that you are having progression in your career.
So one of the key takeaways, as you've mentioned rightly, is that number one, you persisted, you kept pushing, you knew the company that you wanted to be. And also for ourselves, like the students, we are, right now we are starting to have those conversations. After school, where do we want to see ourselves? And for me personally, with these lads, we already started to think of the type of companies we would like to work for, and also keep pushing, because maybe we're applying once is not enough.
Absolutely.
And the focus itself, to have your eyes on something, and I'm sure passion did get you to remain in construction rather than switching to IT, because maybe
it's the fun. It's the fun of the time. At that time, it seems to be the fun thing to do. Yeah, absolutely. And I think all the things you've said are absolutely correct. As you say, when at this stage when you guys, as you come to finish, you need to be clear which are the companies. If someone asks you which are the top 5 companies you'd want to work for, why, and what are those companies doing, so that even if you go to the interview for that company, you're able to demonstrate you've done your homework, you know what they're doing, you know what value you're bringing to them. That impresses the employers. So you've got to be committed to that. But the other point I wanted to make is about failure. For you to succeed, you'll fail more times than you succeed. I think you just have to accept that. I think people assume, you have every job you apply, you have to get it. No, you'll probably apply for 99 jobs, and there's only one job, the one that you are going to get. So that means you'll be dealing with failure more times than success. So you're going to get more rejections than acceptances. So are you prepared emotionally to deal with those rejections? I'm not sure if it's Michael Jordan who said, when he did his basketball, when he shoots and does his three-pointer in one go, you're just seeing that point of his success. You've not seen the number of times he's missed during his practice sessions. He's probably missed more shots than the ones that that have gone in straight. So I think just be prepared for failure. I think a lot of people fail a couple of times, and then you give up and you feel, oh, this is painful, they rejected me, or they did not reply to me. Just normalize. That's the normal. Success will be one-off, and that success, as you build on, you have moments of success, and people will be like, oh, you're lucky, oh, you're an overnight success, but actually
they don't know
you've been working overnight for that.
Right. So as a conclusion, number one, it's like 2 questions really. Number one, how can a student who's pursuing construction management get an opportunity to study either abroad, maybe even in the UK? And 2, the future of construction management as a profession in regards to these times where we have AI and a lot of incorporation of technology. What's your take on those 2?
Okay, so on the first, in terms of furthering your education, I think now we've got lots of opportunities, both in Kenya and abroad. So even before you look abroad, I'd still encourage to have a look locally. At my time, we didn't have a lot of master's programs, especially in real estate and construction. But now we do have them. A lot of the universities do offer. So have a look and see what programs are attractive to you. But even if you look internationally, again, it's the same thing as you approach it as you are approaching a job. Be purposeful. What university do you want to go to? What course do you want to go to? And it's not necessarily that the big universities have the best courses. So I think that's usually something that most people don't quite get at the very early stages. You could say, For instance, I want to go to Oxford. Oxford is a prestigious school, but do they do construction management? So if they don't, then probably Oxford University is not the best university for you. So you'd have to see which one is the best one. Maybe I need to go to another university that is better known for what I'm doing. And that will enable you to get to the industry faster. But again, so be clear which university do you want to go for, which course do you want to do, and then obviously get your grades right, so you have your grades, because your grades are the ones that will drive you through. Even when you're applying for scholarships or any kind of support, if you have good grades, it just makes it much easier. And then it's the persistence. Yeah, just be prepared to apply to 10, 15 universities. You know, maybe not get responses, maybe get rejections, and one or two of them will give you offers with some conditions. Then you progress, and eventually you get. So you just have to be persistent. Other than that, I think is the finances. Finances is usually the biggest challenge. I'm sure you guys are doing well, so you'll be able to get offers. So I think that would be the other one. And again, is to be systematic with the finances.
Okay.
You know, target where are the scholarships coming from. Nowadays we have the internet, so you can get all this on the internet. You get a list, which are the top 20 funding institutions, where are the scholarships, get them, what are the requirements for each of them, understand, make your application. This is something that's going to take you quite a bit of time. You know, it's not something you'll just do an application and send. Because on the other hand, think about the funding bodies that are receiving the applications. They're receiving applications globally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're getting thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of applications. How does your application stand? So it's not just, quickly done a letter, cover letter, blah, 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 sent it out. Why are they not responding? Have you actually taken the time to understand this funder? What are they really want to fund? How can I make my application stand out? And that will be different from the next one. So it's not you do one and then you send to 10 of them. So each of them will be targeted. Then that way you increase your chances and you'll get. So I think it will be just the same attitude that you'd follow when you get to pursuing your jobs.
Okay.
Your second point was on the future of construction. So obviously globally, the future of construction is prefabrication, offsite technology. So that is that is coming up quite a lot. From the documentation, now we have building information modeling. So that's happening quite a lot. So that, I would say, is a big thing. The second major trend is sustainability. So sustainability is growing to be a major thing. As we know, at the moment, the infrastructure and the materials that we are using, if we continue with that pace, our current consumption is about 1.5 times of our planet. So we need more than the planet can offer at the moment. So we need to rethink our consumption, and construction is one of the major industries that takes up a lot of materials from the earth to put up all these buildings. So ESG, which now broadens the sustainability elements of it to bring the environmental, the social, and the governance aspect. So that's quite big. So from a global perspective, I think even when it comes locally, this will be the same. We are maybe a step or two behind the rest of the world, but this is something that is the wave that's coming. So for young guys like you, I would say, think about that, think about technology, understand coding. You may think this has nothing to do with construction. Understand these technologies that are coming, be part of it. Drones, these are things that will be coming up as we progress. ESG, sustainability, we can't continue extracting materials, it will not be sufficient. And maybe can we do a step change in our process. So for instance, we know M-Pesa is one of the biggest innovations that we've had as a country. But if we look at that from an infrastructure perspective, it's quite a big shift, because other countries have gone from building telephone line cables all over, laying them across the whole country, then moving to mobile technology. Then you think about the banking system, building all those banks and banking halls. Now with M-Pesa, we've jumped. You actually don't need any banking halls. You don't need any telephone lines. You don't need all these cables all over. So we've shifted, apart from just from the financial, but from a construction perspective, M-Pesa has shifted his a gear up. So how do we make similar step changes in other parts? If it's transportation, yeah, is there a way we can do without building so much road? Can we get quicker to where we need to get to, or can we actually, do we need to travel to those jobs? Can we actually do these jobs now? We've got people working from home, people studying from home.
Yeah.
So maybe, we need you guys to think more creative and say, we just don't need to say we need to build more roads to get to advancement. We need to think, what do we really need to get to, and how do we get there in a more sustainable way? Yeah.
So you've been in the industry for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And I believe when you started back in around 2000, the technology was not that advanced. I'm not talking of, and even the awareness of issues like sustainability were not there. So how have you been able to stay up to date with such trends and keep up with the innovations?
Absolutely. I think obviously at the end of the day it's curiosity. As long as you're curious to learn, you're curious to find out things, then that will keep your mind alive and you'll always be looking. So I'm always looking to learn, even though I've got that much experience, or I've got so many certificates, you can never say that you've learned enough or you already know everything. There's always new things that you're learning, and I'm always taking new courses and learning as well. I'd give an example in technology, as you've said. When we were doing my PhD, internet was non-existent. So literally you had to walk from library to library to library to look for a book. So if I need a book, it's not in my university, I'd have to go physically to another university, have a look at it. Can I go to their library? So the library was key. You'd have to physically go there. Now you guys, it's quite easy. You just need to key in, sit on your laptop at home, and all the universe is there waiting for you. So your challenge is different. Your challenge is more information overload. How do you sieve through all this information to get to the right information? What's real, what's not real? While us to access the information was hard, at least I knew if I get to the library and I see a book there, this is a peer-reviewed book, so what is in that book? I can consume it knowing that it's got wholesome information. For you guys, there's a lot of information. Does it mean it's wholesome? Who is contributing? So even as you see all these social media posts and you see all these articles and all these blogs, go behind who is actually communicating, because anybody and everybody can just wake up tomorrow and put their opinion out there in the public domain. So you don't have to say you are consuming everything that everybody is posting, so be more selective. So your challenge is a bit different.
It's interesting. I mean, for us, the only reason we'd want to go to another university is probably to meet the girls over there.
That's important too.
It's important. Oh, nice. And that as well. While we were coming this way from lunch, I told them I was watching a DIY video on plumbing, and the comment section was professionals who are there were actually saying, do this at your own risk, because this guy is misleading you. So it's very important what you've just told us about critiquing what we find over the internet. As a finality, I think Victor had a question on PPPs. Sorry.
Actually, on the litigation part, on the laws on PPPs, I find it so interesting that the UK does not have like a specific law on the PPP type of contracting, but here in Kenya we have the same, and our projects are still languishing. So can you comment on that?
So we are at a different wave with the UK when it comes to PPPs. So the UK, they've had PPPs for much longer. They call them PFIs. Slightly the same, PPP stands for public-private partnerships. For them, they have more of PFI, which is Public Finance Initiative, which was an initiative to try and bolster getting financing from the private sector, but very similar arrangements. Now for them, they've gone through the full cycle, whereby they've gone through the PPPs, they've got private parties, they've given them these 20, 30-year contracts. These contracts are now coming to an end, so they've run their full cycle, and now people are asking, have we got good value from giving this to the private sector? Could government have done it? more efficiently, more effectively. So there's a lot of questions around PPPs and PFIs in the UK because they're much further ahead as we're just starting. When it comes now to Kenya, we're just starting. Only a few PPP projects have actually seen the light of day. So there's still a lot of challenges in terms of understanding. And also we don't have a lot of the data to be able to make these projections that are required. Because you're signing a contract today for a 20-30 year contract. Now, how can we foresee what will happen 20-30 years time when we have political cycles that limit us to see more than 5 years ahead? Every election cycle, governments are changing and their opinions are changing, and then things have to be thought through. So we've got different challenges, but I would say, we have the opportunity to see from them how they've done it, what they've learned, where they went wrong, and see how we make sure we don't go to those steps. In terms of the legal side, I think the key difference is that I would say they have laws, they have procurement laws. They may not have specific for PPPs, but they have procurement laws, and their commercial laws are way much stronger, and so they're able to rely on them. So for us, our legal system is still being built up. Procurement is still something that, from a legal side, I think needs a lot more work to be done, because for me, I think the way the procurement laws are done, they're meant to deal with procurement from the purchase of pen and papers in government departments to make sure that, we buy full scraps efficiently and effectively. How do we make sure that that is procured properly? And that is not the same way that you would procure a major project, if you procure a major infrastructure project. So that's why then there's different laws to enable the procurement of different types of projects. But I still think even then, there's also the training, so people to understand the data. So we still have a lot of gaps to make them work, but there's a lot that is happening.
So the future does look promising, but we just have to keep some of these things in mind and factored in. And you said life is a journey, so we just need to keep pushing from whichever stage we are. We ourselves, we are learning. Yourself, you're learning. And so to our viewers, I hope you picked a lot from this conversation. Should we do a road trip after this? That's for us to think about. But thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.